brings those to me every day, and I just don't answer. I just look away. So we're sitting here at mid-season 3-3 and tied for first place in the Coastal. We probably would have taken this 6 weeks ago. It hasn't worked out like we thought it would. It's been different, but it is what it is. I do feel like that Georgia Tech was a really good response after all the energy that our guys spent at Clemson. They didn't do the same at Wake Forest and Appalachian after the first 2 games. We didn't play as well as we needed to at Georgia Tech, but they played with a lot of emotion, played hard. So that's progress, and last week's practice was really, really good, and yesterday's practice was good. So I think they are starting to learn how to compete every day. We also have to give them a lot of credit, too, for going to Georgia Tech, winning for only the second time in 22 years in Atlanta. People kind of overlook that. Georgia Tech went to a bowl last year, so, or at least 2 years ago, I think. So we haven't been to a bowl in at least 3 years. So the guys really deserve credit for going down there and playing as hard as they did. Our fans also deserve credit. We're only one of 9 schools in the country that have had 100% capacity for our home games. And that's really cool for the criticism we've taken in the past. I applaud our fans and thank our fans and our students for coming early and making a difference in our games, because that's something that we really, really need. There's been a lot of talk this week after byes that some of the teams in the ACC have not played well and they've lost. So we went back and looked at our history after byes, and we're 37-1 since I've been coaching. We were 8-2-1 here, and obviously some of that's when we didn't beat anybody with the 8-2-1, and the other at Texas we were 22-5. So I think what we're doing works. There's a lot more injuries when you go back and survey what's happened after your open date. I'm really not sure if that's not kids taking care of themselves on the weekend, if it's not coaches hitting the guys too hard. Our philosophy is that you rest the older ones that have played a whole lot. We didn't hit our backs last week. We hit the young ones, but we didn't hit the guys that have been playing all the time. And we really worked hard with all the younger ones to teach, and at the same time we worked on Virginia Tech. So that's been our philosophy. Then we give them off Friday and Saturday and come back Sunday, and they did a great job, as I said, at practice yesterday. So I think a part of them and talking to them is they're really excited to be in the mix. People say, well, do they have a legitimate chance? Well, obviously we do. I mean, it's there for us. It's we control our own destiny, and every team is as good as we are moving forward. So we understand what's out there for us, and we've got to improve in a lot of areas, but it is what it is. The injuries are real, too. We've lost 4 starters in the secondary. And it's not just losing starters. You lose Nick Polino, and you lose some other Charlie Heck for a game or 2, but when you lose them all at one position, it puts a tremendous amount of pressure on Jay Bateman and Dre Bly. They've just got to do a great job of coaching other guys. And I told them that's what it is. Everybody says next man up. Well, it is. And you've got to coach some guys that haven't played very much, and you've got to coach them really, really well. So that's important to us. Going to Lane Stadium, which is very difficult to play, but a fun place to play. We haven't done very well since they joined the ACC. We're 2-5 up there, so it'll be a great challenge for us to go on the road. And they're 4-2. They come off of a great win over Miami and then beat Rhode Island this weekend, so they'll be all excited. Justin Fuentes, a good friend of mine. I did a number of his games when he was at Memphis, and then did some games at Georgia or at Virginia Tech as well. So he's a guy I've known for a long time. I like, I admire, I respect. So it'll be fun to see him, and I'm proud of the job he's doing. Since they've changed quarterbacks to Hendon Hooker, who's from Dudley, they've really done well. He's a big, tall guy that's a powerful runner, but he's throwing the ball well, and their receivers are as good as anybody in the country. So it's not a good match for us with the defensive backs that we've lost. And when you look at Virginia Tech for 100 years, you talk about Bud Foster and his defense, because he does as good a job as anybody of changing it up and moving people and mixing it up and giving you different looks. So Our offensive line will have to block guys that are moving a lot this weekend. We'll have to pick up a lot of blitzes, and Sam will have to do a good job of controlling all that. And because of Frank Beamer and Beamer ball forever, you also know the kicking game's important when you go to Blacksburg. So guys are excited about it. We'll have a good week's practice and get ready to go and see where we are. Questions?
How much stock do you put into opponents you played, what their results that they accumulate during the course of the season? Especially this weekend, a couple of teams that you beat had really big wins.
Yeah, you look at South Carolina beating Georgia, and that has to give our guys confidence. You look at Clemson just dominating Florida State, and once again, it has to give our guys confidence. And one thing we asked them to do, their assignments on Thursday night, Friday, and Saturday were to watch NC State against Syracuse and go through a game plan in your mind and try to pit us against them. Watch Virginia against Miami. Watch Georgia Tech against Duke because you played Georgia Tech. And then watch Clemson against Florida State. See where that is. Watch South Carolina. So there was a little buzz in the room yesterday about those upsets. It's interesting to me after I go back and have my 5 years in TV, and I'll try to say this where it makes some sense. I've always thought Goff was so different because there's a different winner every Sunday. And sometimes we've never heard of the guy. It's just out of nowhere. College football, other than Goff, to me, has the biggest change in a team's personality from week to week on a Saturday. You can see a team one week and they look absolutely great. You can see them the next week and they're awful. And it's the same people. And it's really hard to understand. But I think there's, other than maybe Goff, there's the biggest differential in teams in college football week to week. And I've learned that one game doesn't lead to another. So about the time you think somebody's there, they stink. They absolutely stink. And I know you all have to pick them every time. I used to pick them, I'd say, this is going to happen, man. And they were awful. Oh, and I was talking to the coach the night before, and he said, man, we've had a great week's practice, and we're ready to go. This game plan's great. I even text Stacy Searles. It was, I picked Notre Dame to be. I guess you really know what you're talking about because they dominated the running game at Miami and Notre Dame didn't make any yards. And so you just can't tell. And I think it's the reason people love college football so much. Because when you show up, you've got no clue what's going to happen. These are kids. And it's just crazy. And you sit there and watch it all weekend, it's just crazy. And you can't figure out why.
So I'm curious, what do you think about what kind of critics were saying after you all lost to Clemson by 1 point, that there was something off with Clemson? I don't know if y'all paid attention to that. What do you think about that?
I didn't, but normally if you're a team that's won 2 games last year and you're a team that won the national championship and it's down to 1 play, you're going to figure something's off. So I think it's just a natural reaction. I'm hoping that we're getting better. So either way, we got Clemson's attention because they played really well Saturday.
Who do you turn to in the secondary now, and guys you're looking at to kind of provide depth there with 2 of your starting corners out?
Well, you've got Greg Ross, who's played a lot, and then you've got Obi, who's got to play some now. He's growing up. You've got Javon Terry, who can play and needs to play more. And we're going to look at DeAndre Holland some at corner as well. Ross, we're really just putting the guys out there and coaching the heck out of them. And that's what we said, you guys, it's time to play. And a lot of the guys that don't play whine about not playing. Here's your chance.
I'm assuming Storm Doug there as well.
Yeah, Storm will start.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm counting him as the old experienced one. So I didn't even put him in the group. And he's playing really well. So we're really pleased with Storm, who 3 weeks ago we were afraid to put in a game. And then we have to start him against Clemson. So Dre's making his money. He's having to coach the heck out of them. And to me, no better person than Jay Bateman, who's dealt with this kind of stuff before. Army had a lot of numbers, but sometimes they didn't have the great players. So they had to do a tremendous job of scheming to cover some guys. And I have full confidence in Jay that he can do that, even though watching Virginia Tech, those receivers are really good.
Mack, in the offseason, you said that quarterback was the biggest question mark for this team entering training camp. to see what Sam has done through 6 weeks, has that been surprising at all to you?
It has been surprising to see what Sam's done. I'm really proud of him. He's tough. We didn't protect very well early. We're doing better now. Whether he was holding the ball a little too long, or probably a combination of both when you start looking at it. And then you lose Jace, and then Kate transfers. So we went from strength at quarterback, unknown strength, because we at least had numbers, to Vincent Amendola now as the backup quarterback, and he's doing really well. We've had 3 weeks now for him to prepare, so he's in a much better place to go in a game now than he was before. One of the disappointing things at Georgia Tech is when we didn't score, when we had opportunities early, I wanted to play a lot of guys, and we didn't get an opportunity to do that on offense. We did defense, and then when we put the white defense in, they scored in 5 plays or something. So that was a disappointment, because we wanted Vincent to get some plays, and he didn't get to do it. And I really think, Greg, in the future, with the way college football is and the portal, quarterbacks are transferring so quickly. And we ran out of quarterbacks at Texas when I was there before. We had a transfer, a concussion issue, and all of a sudden we're down to 1 quarterback there. I think you're going to have to start looking at really concentrating on getting great walk-ons at quarterback. You're going to have to concentrate on if there's a quarterback that's also a safety, and you sign him as a safety, he's going to have to be a third-team quarterback. Because we're all going to have to look for numbers at quarterback, because the only way they normally stay is if you've got an older one and a younger one, and the younger one can see that he's going to be able to play in time. But if you're like us and you had 3 at the same age, it makes it more difficult.
With in-state recruiting, is your emphasis there? Is that maybe one way to stem that in terms of if you can find local kids?
Absolutely. Just like Vincent, we took Vincent late, but a lot of guys want to come to the school, and that priority walk-on spot you can get at school. So we probably need to look at that position as a position of importance at quarterback.
Bo Corrales has become pretty reliable for Sam, especially down in the red zone. What has he done to put himself in position to be more in the mix?
Bo has been tall. He's got great length, and he can jump. He can dunk a basketball. I told Bo the other day, Bo was a guy when we got here that was really inconsistent, and he's got some diabetes issues that he fights, and blood sugar goes up and down, and he has done an amazing job of fighting through the stuff he has to fight with his sugar, blood level, and all that stuff, and playing and being consistent. In fact, we told him his standard is up so high now. We're mad at him because he didn't catch the ball in the high ball in the end zone at Georgia Tech, because we're used to seeing him catch those balls now. But I think Bo has been one of the most pleasant surprises since we've been here. He has really stepped up, and we've got guys like Emory Simmons, who's so close to playing. We've got to trust him, put him out there, because he's done well when he's in. You take Antoine Green is getting healthy again, so we're about to get healthier here at receiver, and we just got to catch balls. We can't drop balls. And we dropped a few yesterday in practice, and now Lonnie Galloway spent about 45 minutes after practice throwing them tennis balls. So one of my friends was out there, and he said, "What's that about, man? They ain't going to be catching tennis balls." And I said, you know, when you go to the golf course and they got these little bitty holes, and you're trying to putt in, and then when you see the real hole, it's real big. I haven't seen that big hole yet on my golf, but same thing with football. Football's huge. If you can catch a tennis ball and have to focus on the edge, you ought to be able to catch a football.
Is it just purely focus on the drops that you've seen?
I think so. They can catch. They're talented. So I think it's. I tried to help them the other day in Atlanta and said, "It's the sun. Man, the sun's in their eyes." Well, it wasn't the sun. It's shady.
You mentioned Emory Simmons. What's your philosophy on the 4 games that freshmen can play? Do you have have you played some? You don't do that at the end of the season? You saving them? What's kind of going on?
Yeah, Ross, you know, it's new.
Yeah.
I mean, the rule was put into place, in my opinion, because we talked a lot about it at the AFCA, the American Football Coaches Association. The rule was put in place, by and large, at the end of the year when you had injuries, to allow freshmen to play and not cost their redshirt year on kick teams, and if you had a blowout, It also was put into place so if, like offensive linemen, at the end of the year, you're blowing somebody out, instead of them not even getting in a game, put them in a game for 10 plays and let them experience that. And I think that was a great rule. Now, after Kelly Bryant transfers after 4 games last year, it's opened up a brand new can of worms because guys across the country, I'm reading, are going to their 5th game, but the night before they're deciding they don't want to play anymore on the road. They're taking their shoulder pads off in the locker rooms and I'm not going to play. And that was not the purpose of the rule. So I think it's something that the NCAA needs to look at, and we in college football need to look at to make sure that the rule does what it was put in place to do. My philosophy is you play to win, so you put the guys in. I mean, nobody red shirts that can help you win, and they want to play. If not, if a guy gets hurt, obviously Tristan Miller got hurt, so that doesn't affect him. But if a guy's playing 4 games and you know that he's not going to help you win a game and he's at his 4th, then you hold him until an injury becomes an issue. And if you still don't have enough guys to play, you got to play them because we don't have much depth. But I told our coaches and our players, nobody's redshirted. You play if you're going to help us win a game, and then we'll look at that next year. But if a guy's a great player, he usually leaves after 3 years anyway. I redshirted some at Texas and got 3 years out of it. Vince Young was a red shirt. I say play them.
You've been pushing these guys to practice a certain way during the course of outside of bye weeks. What was maybe the 1 or 2 things you were trying to impress upon them during a bye week for the first time, and teaching them how to handle that, and more specifically, not just how they practice during a bye week, but all the things that go with it?
Aaron, the biggest thing I've been trying to do is teach them that how you practice is how you play. What we see in practice shows up in games. So if a guy drops the ball in practice, what I see is him dropping it against Virginia Tech. And we're less likely to call your number. You miss tackles in practice, I see you missing tackles in the game. So we're less likely to play if we can help it. So what we've tried to do, I've really challenged our coaches with energy. Mid-season, it's kind of like midterms for kids. Sometimes there's more upsets this time of the year because they're exhausted. And they're fighting their midterms. They're staying up too late. It's just something you don't realize. And you say, God, why are they playing so bad? Well, they're whipped. So there's this real balance at mid-season of practicing them hard enough, but keeping them fresh and keeping them focused. And it's one of the real challenges, but one of the real thrills in coaching. How do you get your team to play hard every week? How do you get them to be tough enough because you're hitting and being physical and stay healthy? I think one of the real tricks in coaching moving forward is practicing game speed and keeping your guys healthy. It's really hard to do, but if you can do that, it gives you a chance to be successful. So the challenge that I've given our staff, our managers, our trainers, our coaches, and our players is let's bring full energy to every meeting and let's bring full energy to every practice. And that'll give us a better chance to have energy every Saturday. And I mean, you saw it this week. Every Saturday we turn on TV and there's a team that just doesn't show up. And me in this business for 40-something years said, how can that happen? Man, you got 12 games. How can you not show up? And it happens. I mean, you can sit there and watch it. And sometimes you can feel it. Sometimes you know it's coming, and it's awful, and you're trying to flip it, but it is hard to flip on a Thursday when they're out there dropping balls and looking around and saying, okay, just grab them, hold on, boys. This ain't good, brother. But it's real, and it's there, and it's what you got. But to their credit, and a lot of times a quote off week, which we don't use that word anymore because they think it's off, bye week or open date, I've called it open date, it's hard to get the guys to practice. But the good thing for us, and Ross, it goes back to your question a little bit, we're challenging the guys on the gray team. Every time you're the Virginia Tech look against our offense or our defense, we're grading you. So you want to play this year? When you're on the, quote, scout grade team, you make plays, and that's the way you move up. And if not, then you're going to stay down there because you've got to earn the right to play. And in the open day week, we really work those guys and hit a lot. It's like a spring training for them because we said, here's your chance. You got 3 days to prove to your coach you can get some playing time. So there may be some guys that come out of that with a better chance to play.
Is there a message though when you want guys to take care of themselves, recovery and all these things during the course of the season? You have more time during a bye week. Is there anything different with how you approach that message to them because they have the extra time and it's essential they use it well?
Yeah, we every time there's someone who makes a poor choice, usually in sports, we send it to them. Every time somebody gets arrested, every time somebody's drinking too much, every time somebody's using drugs, we send it to them and say, make good choices. Because with bad choices, there's consequences. Every time in the meeting, we talk to them about that. And what we talked to them about this week was a lot of teams are losing the week after their open date. Maybe they're not taking care of themselves. It's up to you. I can't follow you around at night. I'm going to let you go home. I'm going to let you see your games, on high school games on Friday night. I'm going to let you be with your parents. I can't call you at 2 in the morning and see where you are. So that's, if you want to win and you want to play well, take care of yourself. And that's a responsibility you've got. And I've told them, I used to worry so much about young guys getting in trouble because it changes their lives. And I had to make a decision after they made the decision of what to do with them. I've told them, I don't worry about that anymore. If you make a poor decision, you've got consequences, period. It's your choice, not mine. And if they do that, and thank goodness, ours have made good decisions, and they've been great kids, but if you make a poor decision and you have consequences, that's on you because you've been told. And the only thing bad about it from my standpoint is if I don't penalize you, because then I've lied to you. And I've lied to the team because we set standards and we have rules. You break a rule, it's my responsibility to make sure you're punished and that you have those consequences. So the way I saw the attention to detail in the meeting yesterday and the way I saw practice yesterday, I would think the message is our guys really took care of themselves over the weekend.
Do you find that when there's more accountability in that room, throughout the room, that there are less issues when the guys have their own time?
Absolutely, and one of the problems you have when you have a transition is, do they trust you or not? Number one, because you got to get to know them, and they got to trust you. And we were lucky that we sold them a lot of stuff, and they won the first 2 games, so that helped us with credibility. Secondly, we don't have many seniors, and then you get a Patrice Renee, who was a great leader for us, hurt, and you get Polino, who was a great leader for us, and Charlie Heck, who's a great leader for us, hurt, and then you can call on the younger ones to lead. They're usually overloaded. So it's hard for them to lead. So that's something we're looking at in every area. And we had a young man late to a meeting the other day, which we've had very little of. We have 22 members of the leadership committee that the team voted on. I took the young guy before the leadership committee, and they were hard on him now. So that's part of this process. It's growing up. Why were you late? Did you not care? Did you explain it to us? And I was going to let them, or I did let them recommend to me whether he should play or not. So we're trying to get ownership with our leadership committee, and they were hard on him. They wanted him punished, but they did want him to play. So.
What's going to be the biggest challenge in preparing for Virginia Tech?
I think, Jonathan, always when you're playing Virginia Tech, it's preparing for the Bud Foster defense. They come from everywhere. And we're still inexperienced in the offensive line. The offensive line is getting a lot better. I think they've probably improved the most on our team, them and linebackers, because those were big question marks coming into the year. But Bud brings them from everywhere. And he puts 8, 9 in the box, so he makes it very, very difficult to run the ball, and then he blitzes you. So you have to hit some throws if you're going to win there. And now, since you've got Hooker at quarterback, he can run and throw. So he really changes their dynamic of what they're doing offensively, and it's more what Justin likes. So I think that's been a huge difference for them since Miami.
Do you consider Virginia Tech wasn't the ACC when you were here last and they've had some recruiting battles with UNC in the last 7-8 years. Do you consider them like a rival and a game that is important for recruiting, that kind of stuff, because of how close they are and y'all recruit the same states?
You know, Ross, everybody has that theory, ABC, anybody in the Carolina. And when we're good and we're doing well in recruiting right now, everybody hates us. So everybody's a rival. With the Georgia Tech win was huge for us because we're recruiting really well in Atlanta. And that was important. We're going to recruit the state of Virginia. We're going to recruit Virginia Beach. Always Virginia and Virginia Tech are factors there. So each one, I've always wondered, and people ask, is this game going to affect recruiting? I don't think it does, especially immediately, because most of the guys have already decided what they're going to do. And the ones that haven't even said they've decided have decided. So they're just not telling any of us yet. So maybe it affects recruiting 2 years down the road, but I've never felt like a game affects current recruiting because the kids have already made their decisions.
How do you think you and your staff have developed, either improved or regressed over the 6 weeks as far as coaching ability?
I think we've improved because we know the team better now. I wish we had some games back where we could have flipped some of that emotion earlier in the week that I didn't think we did a very good job of, and that's me at the beginning of this. The second thing is the coaches get to know each other better because these coaches have never coached together, and that's scary because they got opinions, and you're trying to put a philosophy together. And well, I don't like that. Well, it doesn't matter. We got to choose something. So let's go with it. And then you've got to know your philosophy as compared to your kids. And we couldn't see that, especially on defense in the spring, because so many of them were out. So we didn't know who we had till we got here. It started in August. And the coaches are getting to know what I want more. You know, I can go in and tell them, and they hear it, but they don't know exactly what it means. And now they know what is expected of them. So I think we're at a much better spot now at midseason than we were even 3 weeks ago.
How about you? Aside from the fact that you inherited a situation, are you any different at all than your years at Texas as far as how you grind through the season?
Yeah, I think I'm a lot different. I'm having more fun. I'm a lot more relaxed. I'm a lot more direct. Maybe when you get old, you can say what you want. There's people used to say I had coach speak. I don't have any coach speak anymore. I didn't think I did before, but you're always careful, because when I got the ESPN, they said, you're always so careful what you say. And I said, yeah, you're talking to legal counsel, you're talking to your AD, you're talking to your regents, you're talking to your trustees, you're talking to mama, you're talking to dad, you're talking to grandma, you're talking to the high school coach and the preacher. So everything you say is toward recruiting, and I've got, just tell you what I think.
Do you
I don't care
do
anymore.
you find that you get maybe a different response from people because you're?
I do. It's been a lot better. I've told our coaches I'm really hard on the coaches, and then I move on. I don't stay mad, but if a coach is messing something up, I want fixed, and I want fixed immediately. I'm not going to say it publicly. I'm not going to embarrass him, but I'm going to be really direct and hard on him. And I get all their opinions, but sometime I think at Texas at the end I was swayed too much, and if I didn't really believe something, and a bunch of them did. I've been doing this longer than they have. I know more than they do, so I'm going to do what I think's right after I get their opinions, and they know that.
Is there anything from watching games this weekend that you brought up with your coaches and something interesting you might want to think about here?
I just love watching the games and seeing them. I just flip. I flip back and forth, so I miss some stuff. But and I go back to my old ESPN hat. How would I rank them now? And who's the surprise? And I think the biggest surprise is LSU with what they've done offensively. The young guy they hired from the Saints, and they're moving the ball, so they're in the mix. They're a factor for sure. But I think that that's probably the biggest surprise that I would see. And you've still got Clemson. It's amazing, and looking at Dabo at Texas, where we're winning a lot like he was, and when you get there, fans and media aren't fair. I mean, the expectation for Clemson is that they blow everybody out. You go back to a couple of years ago, they barely beat Syracuse. They barely beat Pittsburgh. They win a national championship, and we think, God, they hung in there and it's a comeback. Now we're saying they stink. They don't stink. They got the best players in the country and still probably the best team in the country. So the fact that we played them good everybody's mad at them instead of being excited for us. It's weird how people look at it. But the key is to win. And you're not going to blow everybody out every week. But the expectations on Trevor Lawrence, all those people criticizing him would darn sure take him. I can tell you that. And if he went out right now, he'd be a #1 draft pick. So we can say what we want. Old boy's really good. I stood out there and watched him in pregame at 6'6" and 230 or whatever he is, and runs 4.4 or 4.5 and never lost a game in his life. If we're criticizing him, oh my gosh. What else? Anything else? Yeah, I used to dread talking to you guys, and now I kind of like it. So it's better. Y'all have a great week.